You wake up every day thinking your life is shaped by circumstances, luck, other people, or timing. But beneath all of that, there is an invisible operating system running your decisions. A set of beliefs so familiar, you mistake them for truth. And that system is either programmed to build power or to leak it away slowly until you wake up one day and realize you became someone you never intended to be. Jim Rohn once said that success is nothing more than a few simple disciplines practiced every day, while a failure is nothing more than a few errors in judgment repeated daily. But what he didn't say directly, what he assumed you were wise enough to understand, is that disciplines and errors don't come from motivation. They come from philosophy, from the way you interpret the world, from the internal rules you obey without questioning. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people don't lose because they are weak. They lose because their philosophy is broken. You were not born with a losing philosophy. It was installed slowly, patiently, by parents who meant well but were afraid, by teachers who rewarded obedience over thinking, by a culture that praises comfort and punishes intensity, by friends who feel threatened when you outgrow them, by systems that benefit when you stay predictable. You were taught that life just happens. That failure is permanent. That effort doesn't always matter. That playing it safe is wisdom. And once those ideas take root, they don't shout, they whisper. They guide your choices quietly. They tell you when to stop trying, when to lower your standards, when to call it being realistic. But there is a deeper, more dangerous truth we haven't touched yet. A losing philosophy doesn't feel like losing while you're inside it. It feels like being reasonable. It feels like maturity. It feels like acceptance. And that's why it's so hard to escape. Look at history. Look at men who understood power, not morality stories designed to comfort the masses, but reality as it actually functions. Machiavelli observed that people are shaped less by truth and more by perception. The Stoics understood that it's not events that destroy a man, but the meaning he assigns to them. Jim Rohn stood at the intersection of these ideas and delivered a brutal message in a calm voice. If you don't design your philosophy, someone else will do it for you. And whoever designs it controls your future. A losing philosophy always has the same symptoms. You delay decisions because you fear being wrong. You wait for clarity instead of creating it. You overthink because you don't trust your own judgment. You confuse being busy with making progress. You hope instead of plan. You cope instead of build. And the most tragic part, you call this normal. You see, philosophy is not what you read in books. It's what you live. It's how you interpret pain, how you explain failure, how you talk to yourself when no one is listening. And every explanation either gives you leverage or takes it away. When something goes wrong, do you ask, why does this always happen to me? Or do you ask, what is this trying to teach me? That single difference separates builders from victims. Jim Rohn warned that if you don't plant your own garden, you'll end up eating weeds. A losing philosophy lets the weeds grow unchecked. It allows excuses to feel logical. It rewards emotional relief over long-term results. It tells you that someday you'll change without demanding you act today. But there is something darker beneath all of this. A losing philosophy is addictive. It protects the ego. It gives you reasons instead of results. It gives you stories instead of responsibility. And the mind loves stories that remove blame. The brain will choose comfort over truth every time unless you train it otherwise. That's why reprogramming a losing philosophy is not about motivation. Motivation fades. It's about identity, about deciding at a core level what kind of thinker you are going to be. And this is where most people fail. They try to add positive thoughts on top of a rotten foundation. They repeat affirmations while still believing the world is unfair. They chase confidence without confronting the beliefs that undermine it. They want results without dismantling the internal logic that produces failure. But there's a deeper, more dangerous truth we haven't touched yet. Your philosophy determines what you notice, and what you notice determines what you become. If you believe life is against you, you will notice evidence everywhere. If you believe effort is pointless, you will subconsciously sabotage consistency. If you believe success is reserved for others, you will avoid the behaviors that could prove you wrong. The mind is always trying to be right, even if being right keeps you small. Jim Rohn emphasized that you don't change your life by changing your income. You change your income by changing your philosophy. And philosophy changes only when pain becomes greater than comfort. That's why people often don't wake up until something breaks. A career collapses. A relationship ends. A health scare appears. Suddenly, the old explanations no longer work. And in that moment, there is a brief window where reprogramming is possible. But you don't have to wait for destruction to learn. The Stoics trained themselves to voluntarily confront discomfort so they wouldn't be ruled by it. Machiavelli observed that power favors those who act decisively while others hesitate. Jim Rohn taught that success is predictable when philosophy is aligned with reality. Reality doesn't reward intention. It rewards behavior. And behavior flows from belief. To reprogram a losing philosophy, you must first become ruthless with your internal language, not positive, precise. Stop saying, I can't. Start asking, how haven't I learned this yet? Stop saying, I tried. Start asking, What did I do repeatedly? Stop saying, it's not fair. Start asking, what leverage do I control? This is not optimism. This is strategic thinking. A powerful philosophy assumes responsibility, not because it's morally superior, but because responsibility creates options. Victimhood creates none. And here's where the shift becomes uncomfortable. You must accept that many of your current struggles are the logical outcome of how you've been thinking, not because you are bad, but because you were programmed incorrectly. Once you see this, blame becomes irrelevant. Only correction matters. But there is a deeper, more dangerous truth we haven't touched yet. Reprogramming your philosophy will isolate you. When you stop complaining, people who bond through complaining will feel exposed. When you stop making excuses, those who rely on them will feel judged. When you raise your standards, you disrupt the unspoken agreement to stay average together. This is why most people unconsciously return to a losing philosophy. Not because it's true, but because it keeps them socially safe. Jim Rohn warned that you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. But what he really meant was that you are the average of the philosophies you tolerate. If you constantly hear that life is hard, success is rare, and effort doesn't matter, your mind absorbs that tone like poison gas, slowly, invisibly, until one day you realize you've inherited beliefs you never consciously chose. Reprogramming means choosing your influences with the same intensity you choose your food, because ideas are nutrients. Some strengthen you, others weaken you. You don't argue with a losing philosophy. You replace it. You replace it with principles that are immune to emotion. Principles like effort compounds. Skills can be learned. Time is either invested or wasted. Discipline is a form of self-respect. And personal development is not selfish, it's survival. Jim Rohn believed that you don't get paid for time. You get paid for value. And value grows when you do. This is a philosophy of leverage, not luck. But adopting it requires something most people avoid: silence. You must create space away from noise to hear your own thinking, to notice the assumptions guiding your choices, to catch yourself justifying mediocrity with clever language. The mind will resist this. It will distract you. It will seek entertainment. Because introspection threatens the stories that protect the ego. But there is a deeper, more dangerous truth we haven't touched yet. Your philosophy becomes your destiny because it determines what you repeat daily. Small actions don't feel powerful. That's why they work. A losing philosophy underestimates small disciplines. A winning philosophy is built on them. Reading 10 pages a day, practicing one skill daily, improving one habit at a time. These are not motivational tactics. They are philosophical commitments. They say, I believe the future responds to what I do consistently, not what I feel occasionally. And once that belief takes hold, everything changes. You stop waiting for permission. You stop negotiating with your moods. You stop needing external validation to move forward. You act because action aligns with who you are becoming. This is why Jim Rohn emphasized personal responsibility with such calm certainty. He wasn't selling hope. He was revealing cause and effect. If you don't like where you are, look at what you've been doing. If you don't like what you've been doing, look at what you've been believing. And if you don't like what you've been believing, it's time to reprogram. Reprogramming is not dramatic. It's methodical. It's choosing better questions, better inputs, better standards, over and over again. And one day, without fanfare, you realize something terrifying and empowering at the same time. You are no longer the person you used to be. Your reactions change. Your tolerance for nonsense disappears. Your patience for excuses, especially your own, vanishes. You feel calmer, not because life is easier, but because your philosophy no longer collapses under pressure. And here's the final truth. A losing philosophy keeps you asleep while life passes. A powerful philosophy wakes you up to the fact that every day is a vote for the person you are becoming. You don't need more time. You don't need more motivation. You need a better way of thinking. Because the moment you change the philosophy guiding your choices is the moment your future stops being accidental. And now we return to where we began. You don't have a motivation problem. You don't have a discipline problem. You have a philosophy problem. And the question is no longer whether it will shape your life. The question is whether you will finally choose it or continue letting it choose you.